Hi, everybody. Welcome to Green Shoots. I'm Ryan Ballengee. It's great to have you here. We're joined by Tagmarshal CEO Bodo Sieber. It's great to have him on again to kind of talk about the state of the industry and being able to kind of use the importance of GIS data, cart data, pace of play data for golf courses, owners, and operators to be able to kind of make the most out of not only their economic opportunity, but also the golfer's opportunity to have a great experience. So, Bodo, thanks for being on. Can you give us kind of an update on where Tagmarshal is distribution wise, how many facilities and courses are using it, and kind of the trajectory of the company been since we last spoke?
Yeah, Ryan, thanks so much for having me. And I already love where you're going with your questioning. So I'm excited to chat. Um, yeah, we are now setting our sights on 600 partners in the near future. We've had a fantastic year. We've grown over 50% year over year. But this year has been particularly exciting because we work with Valhalla, for instance. So they served up an amazing PGA Championship, and we work with Pinehurst. I think this is now year 6 or 7 in a relationship with them. They did the US Open, and then now recently we actually tracked the ladies Open at St Andrews. That's also one of our partners. So as far as the big screen golf and the majors is concerned, this year has been very amazing for our team, and it's obviously feeling proud by association, if you will. But where we're seeing the biggest take up in the technology is really in the middle of the market, right? The $50 green fee golf course that's solving the same problems and also has the same opportunity right now. And the opportunity is there's such a big demand on the game. How are we going to serve the players, and also how are we going to serve new players that have joined, and how are we going to make the most out of this opportunity in terms of making hay while the sun shines, right? So that has been the biggest take up sort of portion of the market for us, alongside the private clubs that all have queues around the block and want to accommodate more members.
But not too long ago, pre-pandemic, there were plenty of courses that were charging sub $25 to play a round of golf in this country. Most of those don't charge that anymore. They charge significantly more than that for a variety of reasons. One, demand; two, just good old-fashioned inflation. But has that made Tagmarshal a more valuable investment to those properties now that they are able to charge substantially more than they had even a handful of years ago?
Yeah, obviously with a higher demand and a limited supply base comes the opportunity to elevate your pricing a bit, right? But a good operator will know that this is a privilege that you have to earn, right?
Yeah,
So
sure.
so what we're seeing is the and maybe just a little bit on Tagmarshal. So we provide a technology that you can think of as a Waze or Google Maps for on-course traffic management. So with that comes obviously the live management of everything that moves out on the course, including all the players, your drinks carts, your mowers, your vehicles, anything. And we've got the smartest algorithms in the business to make sense of this, what is it, multi-variable traffic problem, if you will. And we have the underlying data to understand where the choke points, what happens if you choose this setup over another, what happens with this weather over another, what happens with this play volume over another, and where are the areas on the course that you can look to optimize for additional throughput, and how can you optimize your tee sheet to really get the most out of your asset, at the same time keeping the quality of the product that you're serving, which is an amazing round of golf, as high as possible and as consistent as possible. So what we found is that a lot of operators are starting to think as what happens out on the golf course is really the economic engine of their business, right? They need to drive that as best as they can. And what does that mean? Well, we need to make sure that we can get as many players through here. And I know that in the Tiger days of hype, some golf courses pushed out golfers at 6 or 7 minute intervals, right? To
Yeah.
the detriment of the experience, right? Where a lot of golfers say, well, that's not for me, I'm out, right? Because then you're creating a traffic jam by design. So the leaner years have taught operators that, well, there's better ways to do that, and then we've even had COVID where some courses then did 15-minute intervals, which basically halves your opportunity for
Right.
business, right? So those are the two extremes, but somewhere in the middle is is your optimum, and you can really not know that and what that is until you have data. And also, as the course sort of ebbs and flows throughout the day with regards to sort of the pace and players' movement, depending also on setup and climate and things like that, there are nuances that you can really extract opportunities out of. So what we're finding is that if you consider it the economic engine of your operation, you have to look at what's the optimal throughput, but also what's the best possible quality of the product that we are processing here, right? And in the golfers, if you ask a golfer, what they want is great conditioning and great pace of play, right?
Yep.
And make me wait and give me amazing greens and good fairways. And if you give that to them, they'll always come back. And if you give that to them, they're happy to pay. So what we're finding in this environment, as you ask, where there's more demand, is that as an operator, once you really deploy technology and get the data insights, you can really differentiate yourself from the competition by creating almost segmentations throughout your day, where a lot of operators are saying, well, we can actually play this course in 3 hours 30, right? Because the data shows us that's possible. Not first round out, but let's take the first 5 rounds out. And are there players that are willing to come for exactly that experience?
Yep.
And what's it worth to them, right? Now we're talking fast lane golf, we're talking dynamic pricing opportunities. And if you're moving players considerably faster across your golf course, you can also tighten the intervals, which is physics, right? Because they're moving out of the fairway quicker. And can you then create additional capacity, where a lot of golf courses, by deploying these strategies and really understanding how their course runs and also optimizing some of those variables, have found that they can add 2 or 3 tee times a day. And if those are one or two of them are falling within that dynamic price sort of high-end range of where you're around all of a sudden is worth twice as much, that is really attractive. But what you have to do, and that's where I'm coming to the second portion, is ensure that the quality of the round in terms of pace of play, in particular, is as high as possible. Because if you're charging dynamically priced demand pricing that is twice as much, where your $50 round now costs $100, that the expectation of the players that are paying that also rises, right?
Right.
So if you're not paying $100 at this course and the pace is off and you're having to wait, well, you're feeling twice as aggrieved. Right.
Right.
So what they found is that, well, we have to deliver on all fronts, right? If we want to dynamically price and make the most of the demand, we have to also deliver on the quality. And this is where technology really helps ensuring the quality and making sure that it is the same and controllable every single day. And it's not luck of the draw. Some days it's 5 hours and some days it's 4 hours, depending on what you're getting. But no, it's really controllable. So that's the one part. And the second portion is, once you have control, you can then really add those additional increments of additional tee times, and that obviously drives revenue. But the bigger scheme opportunity is obviously, if the economic engine of your operation is healthy, you have more footfall, players come off the golf course happier, right? They're going to spend more time with you in your food and beverage in your clubhouse. And also, and I don't know if you noticed, Ryan, so last year, 3.7 million new players joined and played for the first time on a golf course. And 65% or so, according to the National Golf Foundation, of those had first interaction with the game off the course, which is normally Topgolf or Simulator, right?
Yep,
So they have been bitten by the bug, and now they're coming out. So there's a real opportunity to turn these guys into long-term, and ladies more and more, and that's the beauty of it, into long-term lovers of the game, right? But you have a first few opportunities as they have their first experience to get that right. And again, if you have technology that helps you manage the seasoned scratch golfer, as well as the dad and son, right, as well as the ladies foursome, because you know who's out there, that lets you manage that more appropriately. So where I'm saying you can do fast and golf mornings, you can also do a few beginner tee times in the afternoon, where you give players a bit more time, right? and take the stress and pressure off them. And even that can be dynamically priced, right?
Right.
So there's real opportunity in thinking about your operation with a lot more categorization and segmentation rather than just a one size fits all experience, right? And this is really where
Yep.
technology and data is starting to help. And ultimately, the operators are then saying, well, our net promoter score is rising, like players are leaving happier and saying good things about our operation. And it's obviously good for our business. And we can never have enough quality in our execution, right? And another big thing that has happened, and you mentioned cheekily mentioned inflation, which has been a theme. Labor issues is a big theme, right?
Yes.
Because
Comes with it.
yeah, 3.7% or so unemployment rate means, well, you can't find people, right? And so the people you have, well, they're getting job offers. So if you're not looking after them, if you don't give them the tools they need to be successful, well, your competitor's going to steal them from you or they're going to leave, right? Not everyone loves working on a Saturday
Right.
as much
Right.
as we love golf, right? So people have options, right? Because a low unemployment rate means that. Also, a rising cost base around minimum wage affects golf operations. So they have to think, operators have to think a bit differently around how can we give our people the best tools so that they can do what people do best, which is build relationships and create experiences, right? Do we need people to make things work? Yes, to an extent. But can they make things work better with technology? Absolutely. That's been proven now since the Industrial Revolution, right? And now we have AI and we have smartphones and we have smartwatches and we have technology that can help us make things work better so that we can spend more time doing what we do best as people, which is looking after other people. And we found a lot of operators are really dialing into the opportunity that we bring because they want to do the right thing, but they also want to ensure that their staff can cope with being back to back every day, right? And with having this high demand and at the same time high expectations from the players, because the players can go play somewhere else or they can go to Topgolf, right?
Right.
So you have to earn the right to have them to come back. And one of the stats that's hurt the game is that and I've heard two versions of this, but the one was at a Golf Inc. event where it was shared that 48% of first-time visitors to a golf course, to a Delphi golf course, do not return. So that means almost half of players who play for the first time at the course don't come back, and that's obviously a huge opportunity to turn around and turn a one-off player into a five-time player, into
Right.
repeat. And again, if we serve our service right, if we give them the best possible round on a nicely conditioned course, and we look after them with on-course service and all of those beautiful things, the chances of them coming back a few more times is obviously so much higher. And that's, yeah, again, that's the opportunity. If you have a technology stack where there's some integration, which we obviously do a lot of, where we're integrating with a T-sheet, we're understanding who are those players coming through, what's their handicap. We're integrating with Golf Genius for live scoring management, for instance. We're understanding, are they successful around the score that they're trying to shoot, and we're understanding what's happening out on the golf course. So it really gives you a good picture as an operator, are we successful, right? In terms of what we're trying to create. And the more data you have, you can never know enough about your business.
Right.
And it goes way beyond the financial data, which is really a result of the work that you're doing. But you have to look at the real-time opportunity of data and also at the other variables that really make things tick for your operation. And the more you know, the better you can make decisions. And also the better you can do more of what works. And here's a funny opportunity that Pinehurst wanted to understand, for instance, and that was a recent a Forbes article actually, where they said, well, people come to us to have that major challenge and experience, but if we give them that, if we play our greens to the speed and the setup as we would for US Open, everyone would horribly fail and our rounds would be 6 hours long, right?
Right.
So saying we need to understand where's the sweet spot of major type experience in terms of green speeds, but we're not killing our pace of play, and we're giving our players an opportunity to shoot a reasonable score too, where they're happy with the higher score because it's Pinehurst, but we want to get that right. And they said, yeah, we are basically a living laboratory where we try and test these things, and we understand, and we do more of what works by getting the data. And they really found a correlation between green speeds and pace of play. And it's a beautiful graph, and there's a sweet spot, right? And I said, that's how we got to do it. And they said, well, without that, what we would have been below or above, we would have either had, had place, the pace deteriorate, or we would have made it too easy for our players, right? So they've really being led by data here is really the sweet spot opportunity for what we're trying to create at Pinehurst. And again, it's not a case of somewhere in a textbook it says this is a green speed you need to have. You know, you need to really understand what it is that you're trying to create as an operator, and then also test that against your assumptions. And again, data is your friend here. So I think there's a lot of good things that have come out of this influx of new players and demand on the game, but we have to also consider where the game's grown by 25% over the last 5 years. The available golf courses haven't, right? There's only been a handful of new courses that have been opened, and some of them amazing, but it's
and a lot of them private.
Yeah, true. But it's basically the same supply, right? So it's a fantastic opportunity really for technology like ours to help and make a difference. And ultimately, that makes the operations more sustainable and more players happy. And that's what we're here for.
I want to go down two paths of kind of things you talked about here and maybe take one after the other. One being something that you talked about in terms of customer segmentation, thinking about certain times of day when people come out and what their expectations are, what they're trying to do when they come out to play. Specifically as it relates to people who come out maybe later in the afternoon, or they're twilight golfers or super twilight golfers, and they're just trying to come after work or whatever time they have available to come play. Is there segmentation available so that facilities can say, hey, maybe on Wednesdays, we've got a day where our twilight is really geared toward the player who wants to be guaranteed they're going to get 18 holes in, not 13, not 14. The pace doesn't slow it. They want 18 holes versus 3 other days a week. It's whatever you can get in. We're going to jam we're going to try and get as much revenue out of it as possible. Does it kind of break down to that kind of level? Or are we looking more just kind of holistically across weekdays and weekends as we've kind of traditionally done?
Yeah, both, right? So that is definitely an opportunity. And think about it. If your pace of play generally is 4 hours and 20, and now with better management, sort of real-time management of understanding problem groups early, getting on top of them early so that you can keep the field moving, but also understanding optimal setups to support the best possible flow, you can drive down your pace to say 4 or 5, right? So now you saved 15 minutes. So that means your 12 o'clock tee time now ends 4 hours and 5 minutes after that, where normally it would end at 4:15, right? So that might be the difference between somebody being able to play another 18-hole round or a twilight round that's a bit cut short, right? And you might be able to get 2 more out at full 18-hole rates and make 2 more groups of players happy. So this is what happens at the tail end of the day. But ironically, the best way to make that happen is to have a fast start to your day, right?
Yeah.
So this is where this actually works perfectly with a fast swing golf strategy, where normally what you would find is that a golf course, in terms of the pace as it runs throughout the day, if you segment the day on a hour-by-hour basis, you would find that, say, at between the tee times between 9 and 11, that's when the pace starts to stack up a bit. But before that, and especially early, you often find that players are quick, because obviously generally some players really try and get that first tee time, right? So nobody's in front of them, and there's always over demand on that. But we can show, according to data, that a course that plays in 4:10 can be played in 3 hours 30, can be played in 3 hours 40, right? So again, if we play that fast swing golf strategy and we say we guarantee that you will play this course in 3 hours 30, That means that we're pulling the day along because the next segment that we're going to run is 3 hours 55, 4 or 5. So we're managing the course according to these standards and benchmarks, and we're communicating that to the players what the expectation is, and the system keeps the players up to date and up to speed, if you will. So now you're pulling the day along, and you're starting the day faster. That really frees up additional opportunity for another tea time early, but also at the end of the day, at the tail end. And that really works every time. And now you're making more players happy because they come to you and pay for what they wanted to get. And if you think about it, with Zoom now being part of everyone's workday, like I never miss a meeting now, Ryan, right? Because I can take it in the car. Where in the past it's like, I'm German, right? So if I'm not early, I'm late. But sometimes you don't get it right, and now you're 5 minutes late, and it's uncomfortable because you have to get somewhere and you have to get set up. Well, now on Zoom, I take it in the car. I'm never late. If you think about it, what does it mean for a golfer? Well, if I know I can play 18 holes at 7 in the morning on a Thursday, I can play a full 18, and then I can have my first meeting in the car park at a reasonable hour, right? Whereas if I don't know and this round might be 5 hours, then I have to say no. I have to say no to my golf round. But if I know
Yeah,
that it's 3 hours 30, I can do it. And then I'm available and I switch on into my workday. So it's not a case of let's do a quick 9 after work. No, I can actually do a full 18 before work if I play my cards right, and if the
right.
course plays along, because that's how I want to play quick, get through it, and then have an awesome work day afterwards. So this is where that sort of working online, hybrid work from home world that we've inherited after 2020 is really also still helping the game and more players to get out and play a bit more golf, right?
For sure. And then another follow to that, are courses using course data, or has anyone entertained this idea of using course data, pace of play data to inform maybe midday or during the day setup changes? I'm thinking about, again, trying to think about that late day player or the early day player who wants to get done quickly, giving them easier pins, shorter
Yeah.
holes, more
Yeah.
friendly setup versus maybe in the middle of the day so that you know you're going to hit your time number and you're going to have a
Mm.
better time. So for maybe a beginning player, they're going to have a better chance of scoring better.
Yeah. Yeah, I love your thinking here. And I do think that you probably sparked some good consideration around this. I have not seen that done. Obviously, there's courses that are saying, well, play appropriate tee boxes, right? And they've got a
Sure.
bit of a rating system, which how far can you really drive it? Do you really need to test yourself, or can you be reasonable and actually save everyone 10 minutes, right?
Right, right.
Um, so that is one of the things, but could you have an alternate setup for certain times of the day, or maybe there's a segment for, hey, between this time and this time, it's newbie hour or something, right?
Yeah,
And we
exactly.
do things a bit simpler for you. I think that's actually a great idea. I'd love to discuss it with some of the operators that are open to new ideas. I haven't seen it done before. What I have seen though is that some operators are doing double T starts, right? Double
Yeah,
T starts means if you get it right, you have an immediate capacity gain, right? But if you get it wrong, you have twice the headache.
right, right, right. It's a
Because
gamble.
obviously, as the head of the 1 9 bumps into the tail of the other 9. Um, yeah, we've actually done some analysis around this, and there is a bit of an optimal range in terms of your length of course and the total play time of your course. And if you're over and under that, it's not necessarily viable, but within an optimal range, you can get an immediate gain on your inventory. And it requires a bit of a reset in thinking and culture, but there are some areas and some countries where it's normal to play, or they're doing a lot of double T times, right?
Yeah,
In
yeah.
in the States, not as much, but we do have some partners that are more commercially minded and less golfer etiquette or golf tradition minded. They're happy to give it a go, and it's working for them. And ultimately, you make more players happy. It's good for business.
One last question for you to kind of try to bring it all together, and that is what is the relationship between Tagmarshal, the data that you get about just pure traffic operation and movement, and how does that connect with customer relationship management at a course level so that courses have an even finer idea through segmentation, through knowledge of how a player plays,
Mhm.
how to best serve them and their expectations on the golf course that they're playing?
Yeah. No, no, great question. I mean, there's so much that you can do with yeah, with that real-time line of sight, including making sure that your drinks cart is in the right place at the right time. You can even get optimization around your halfway service, right? If you have if the halfway house staff knows there's a group approaching, well, they can be prepared. There can even be food or drinks pre-ordered via GPS, for instance. That's all helpful. Also, if you have say you're a private club and you really are trying to do sort of high-end white glove servicing, you can serve players out on the course and go find them with whatever treat of their choice at the time of their choice, at the hole of their choice. That can be predefined, prearranged, and because you have line of sight, you can go do that. Or you can greet them post-round. You know they're coming off the 18th. You're not standing there as a service staff waiting for 15 minutes. You know exactly when they're going to be there, right? Because you have the data that comes in. But I think from a broader data context, the opportunity is really understanding also, and it's one thing that we break down, for instance, what is the time spent on the various sections of a hole, right? What's a tee box time / tee box wait time, which is obviously the time that hurts the most when the
Yeah,
pace is
right.
not good.
Yeah.
What's the time on fairway? What's the time on green, right? And really understanding that, so that sometimes what you need to do from a setup point of view, or even from a conditioning, adjusting the rough or what have you kind of view, is sometimes you have to slow down a hole, make it harder, so that you're buying time for the next hole so that can play more smoothly, right? And it's counterintuitive, but you might
Yeah.
save 4 holes, 4 minutes on the next hole if you make the hole before that 1 minute slower, right? And you can only do that if you have data. And then it's a continuous improvement effort, right? And also, yeah, just looking at the correlation of weather and wind and versus setup, and not just setting up the course because that's what you planned on a Monday, right? Really looking at
Right.
yeah, at the dynamic conditions a little bit more, so that you can, yeah, make yeah, better decisions that ultimately serve the golfer, right? And that this is where we're actually finding really good opportunities for the superintendents and greenkeepers to work much more closely with the golf staff, because ultimately they're on the same team, right? They're serving the golfers. But in at some clubs, you have almost this disconnect where the superintendent is saying, "Well, get these players off my golf course," you know.
Right.
um,
Right.
I'm trying my best here to keep this place well conditioned, and now you bring me all this traffic, things are compacting, get them off here. Where the golf staff's obviously, well, we're trying to serve up the best possible round and obviously the highest possible volume so that we can run a sustainable business. We have to find a balance, but again, when with a better understanding by both sides, and also really sharing data between yeah, the golf staff, and sort of what sort of scores our players shooting with this setup, what are the choke points on the golf course that we're potentially creating with that setup, and how can we optimize that versus the play volume that we're expecting, or that big corporate day shotgun rounds that we have on Saturday, whatever it is, or the club event. Like, we need to really think about that, not just anecdotally, but based on data as much as possible. And at the same time, the superintendent team going and getting more out of their time and their labor, for instance, if they're tracking mow patterns, if they're understanding where opportunities based on heat maps, where players never go or where they always go, to save on irrigation, to save on labor hours, to save on fertilizer, right? And those opportunities, again, they get uncovered with data and analytics. And we even mentioned Valhalla earlier. They did renovations to their course to ready themselves for the PGA Champs, and they looked at that heat mapping data. They wanted to know, where can we trim some of our fairway, but also where can we make better design decisions so that we can build a better flow into the design of our golf course, rather than going on the experience of a single architect. You can then actually go on the experience of thousands of rounds that have been tracked, and you know, where do players cut across, where do they move maybe a bit irrationally, as we do, because we're humans, right? We're cutting across certain areas, or we're doing things a certain way, or the caddy does this instead of that. You can only know that if you really have that data and line of sight over it, and also you collect it over time, and it's automatically collected all the time. So we're finding there's a lot of opportunities around that, because that is obviously the next frontier now, right? If you think about it, you have that's an amazing stat, actually. There's more golf courses in the US than there are Starbucks or McDonald's stores. That's, again, National Golf Foundation data.
Right.
So are we going to build another 20% of golf courses, another 2,000-3,000 golf courses? Unlikely, right? But these golf courses now that are operated and run well, they are asking to be renovated in the future, right?
Yes.
We want to do them better. We want to reinvest in our assets. So how are you going to do that? So again, there's some amazing success stories with shorter courses, or courses shortening their footprint, right? Because shorter course means less overheads, right? Less input costs, and you can where for a period we try to make courses long and tough as possible. That also costs money to maintain, and it's more land, right? So maybe you can make renovation decisions that free up some space for alternative entertainment, and that might be more driving range space or whatever. Those things that can be beautifully monetized now, just by trimming the course a bit. But then we want to still make sure that we can preempt and optimize our throughput modeling and the likely pace of play. And this is where technology helps you get a better understanding without you moving any soil, right? Before it gets expensive. So we're very excited about that. In the next couple of years, I think there's going to be a lot of capital projects that clubs are going to do. And I know that the ones that have been using Tagmarshal for a while definitely going to dig into that data to make these decisions.
Well, if there's any takeaway from someone who does not work in the golf world, is that there is a lot more happening at your facility than you even understand, and that nothing but technology can help you understand it, at least have an idea of what's going on, a better prism through which to see it. And Tagmarshal is a great way to be able to get a lot of that foundational data, from operations to customers to just kind of general culture of a place. And if you want to get in that space and get that data for your facility, Bodo's your guy. So head over to tagmarshal.com, Tagmarshal, not two L's in the end, one L in the end.com, and get in touch with Bodo and his team. They're fantastic people. They do incredible work. And I thank you for coming on and talking with us about what's going on in the golf world, what's going on with your business. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Ryan. Always love your questions, and you giving me a couple of minutes to geek out on something that we're super excited and passionate about.